Welcome everyone to our second Lighting Action Group meeting, co-hosted between me, Mike Bryant, and Scott Kelly, who's also on the call. Our first call was mostly an introduction to the process of the DSM of the DSM process, and what I kind of had envisioned, or Scott and I had talked about envisioning for our group, and what kinds of things we might want to accomplish in terms of making improvements to Excel's rebate program so it's successful for all of us, including Excel. So I had sent out last at the first meeting a list of questions that I was going to use as grist for our meeting mill and today and getting our participants' responses to these questions. But first, we have Mike, who has joined us, who was not on the call last time. Mike, first of all, can I ask you to pronounce your last name for me so I know?
Bellemare.
Bellemare, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing you're with a firm called Switch It Up LED. I don't know where I'm getting that from.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a light bulb above your head, right? So we're actually Switch It Up Incorporated. We have 3 major divisions under the company. The LED is just the original company. So we since became an S Corp. We're Switch It Up Incorporated. Under that umbrella, we have Switch It Up Electric, Switch It Up LED, which is our wholesale and lighting retrofit company, and then Switch It Up EV, which is a new leg of the company that's going to capitalize on this soon to be exploding EV installation market.
Well, and what's your role with the company, Mike?
I am the founder and CEO. I started this outfit 5 years ago, and we've grown to a multi-million-dollar industry within 5 years and about 18 employees and more subs than I can remember.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. I have a similar firm myself, not as big. Nuova Luce is how I pronounce it. So you probably, I don't know, Mike, whether you had gotten the original invite from last month with that agenda.
I did, yeah, I read it. I wasn't unable to make it to the call. Got stuck out in the field. So today I had 2 alarms set to make sure I was back at the desk to be on the call.
Perfect. I'm glad you could be here today. Scott, welcome. I see you've joined us as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your invitation to this group.
Did you have any problems getting logged in?
Just no, Zoom insisted that I do an update first.
All right. Well, Scott, let me turn it to you real quick. Is there anything you wanted to say at the onset of our meeting here?
Sure. I'm delighted to be a part of it. I'm really hoping to convince.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Scott Milne. I'm sorry. You were on our call last month, right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I did not mean to put you on the spot there. We've got 2 Scotts on the call as well as 2 Mikes. So go figure. There's 8 people and four of us share 2 names. So I meant that more for Scott Kelly, if there's anything he wanted to kick off the meeting with.
Okay.
No, not at this point. There's not.
All right. Well, how we kind of left things off last time. The questions that we'd included in the agenda last meeting, I kind of asked folks over the intervening time to take a look at those questions. I don't know if folks have had a chance to really read those questions and put some thoughts down as to what their responses would be, but I wanted to kind of go through those and get from our group here, where people stand on what do they think of, these questions, what their responses would be, and maybe that would give us some insights as to, what sorts of things we want to take to Excel. Doug, welcome.
Thank you very much. How you doing?
All right. I'm doing well. So let me just real quick, let folks go off of mute real quick. Did folks have time to, look at these questions that we threw out here? Or is it something kind of slipped off the table after our last call?
So those questions, Mike, would just be the questions at the body of the email. I have it open right now. The higher dollar amounts for exterior rebates, rebates for exterior controls, and on-bill financing for commercial customers. Is that what we're talking about?
Right. Yeah, at the top, it said kind of review our informal ideas, identify opportunities, thought starters. Yeah, exactly. There's about
Okay.
a dozen and a half questions or so that I've thrown out here just for kind of to get the discussion going.
So, I mean, do you want to pick a topic and kind of roll
Well,
with
yeah,
that?
I mean, if it's okay, I mean, I'm happy to kind of go down sequentially through this list just to keep my thoughts in order.
I think that'd be good, Mike.
Great.
Let's just
Thank
go
you.
down the list sequentially and see what people think about them.
Excellent. And then at the end, or as we go throughout it, but I also asked an open-ended question of, beyond these questions that came to my mind or Scott's in my mind and other people that we talked to, are there any other questions, important questions that we should, or items that we want to be thinking about getting collective feedback about that we want to take to Excel as well. So let me start at the top there. So, just a open-ended question in a way, which rebates do we find are really insufficient, really not doing much to tip buying decisions in adopting LEDs and replacing legacy products, which might need to be enriched?
I mean, I would say that they need to bring the dollar amount on the sodium vapors and metal halides back up. I remember when I first started this outfit 5 years ago, the first 2 years, those rebates were very healthy and generous, and it was really easy getting people to jump on board and change those high wattage, high output lights. And since then, they've shrank by, I don't know, 60, 70%.
Well, especially for outdoor lighting, is that what you're thinking about?
That's what I'm referring to. Yeah,
Yeah,
they need to bring that dollar amount for the exterior lighting back up.
Yeah. How about other people want to chime in?
I'd like to see additional incentive for delamping tubes.
Yeah, we'll Scott, we're gonna come to that. That's a little bit down further on the list. Don't let me forget. How about other folks with regard to other insufficient rebates? Exterior lighting is one of them.
Currently, there's no rebate for solar exterior parking lot lights.
Right.
I'd love to see one of those, but it eliminates energy, doesn't just reduce it.
Right.
I think,
I think with the exterior, and I know I'd mentioned this before, the one of the issues that we find with the exteriors, there's a lot of decorative fixtures on the exteriors of buildings, and they don't end up passing the TRC test when you go to replace them. And so, in our opinion, we think that we would like to, I guess I would like to see what the black box of the TRC is and how they're calculating that. And two, if you're saving energy, we think you should get a rebate for making those upgrades, whether that be a decorative fixture or, your standard wall pack type fixture. If you're going from 100 watts to 30 watts or whatever it might be, that we would like to see rebates for that.
So Scott, you're talking the custom rebate program?
Yeah, whether that be the custom rebate program or there's some sort of prescriptive way that they would still rebate that. But yeah, I mean, obviously with the custom rebate program, that's where it's getting kicked out. Usually a lot of those fixtures are not DLC listed, and so they get kicked out of the prescriptive program, and then they end up going down the custom path. And the custom rebates for exterior lighting right now, or the custom rebates just in general, are pretty darn low. So we would like to see those bumped up.
Well, Mike, since you had brought this up originally, I mean, this may be common knowledge to everybody, but maybe not. From what I'm hearing, Excel has very little interest in exterior lighting because it's non-peak, not they operate not during peak demand hours, and so there's far less incentive or reward for them to reduce demand during those off-peak times. Anybody else hear differently, or?
It's my understanding, I can open a sheet. It's my understanding that they do offer for non-DLC. It's just a lowered rebate amount. So they haven't 86'd it. They're realizing that it doesn't have to be DLC listed to actually present a savings.
Fortunately, more recently, Excel has allowed for non-DLC listed products that otherwise meet the same specifications as a DLC listed product, but yeah, it gets paid 75%, which is better than nothing. But yeah, there's you can encounter that a fair amount of times when, you know, just for whatever reason, it's a product that the manufacturer is not expecting to sell huge quantities of, so they don't want to pay for the DLC listing. But you might be able to get it, you know, it otherwise meets the criteria, so you get some rebate money for it.
But even on some of the, just to chime in on that, but even on some of those where it's not listed under the right category, it wouldn't get,
gosh, yes,
like the rebate. So there'd be like certain exterior type fixtures where it falls outside of the category, and I don't think it can qualify as a prescriptive rebate. And so you have to try and put it down the custom path, and it inevitably usually gets kicked out because it doesn't pass the TRC test.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, you got to pay for, I guess, you know, however many ways you want that single product to be listed, right? However many categories you want, and you got to pay for every type of category. So they may not decide to call this a stairwell fixture or what have you, and even though otherwise it performs or acts the same way. Yeah.
Like a post top would be a good example of kind of what I'm talking about, like a decorative post top type fixture. There's no rebate category for that. And it ends up having to go custom.
Right.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. That would definitely be something to bring up so they can broaden that category. I mean, let area light cover post tops and other things that usually fall outside the category. That's a really good one.
Yeah, they're very expensive, you know, so.
Yeah, every little bit helps on those to get those projects approved, for sure.
Exactly. Yep.
Good.
Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Well, just because, and kind of to, you know, Mike's point that, you know, he's getting into EV charging, and we're doing some of that as well. You know, one of the things we talked about on the last meeting, which I don't think you were on, Mike, is, you know, with exterior lighting, we think that the demand timeframes are going to shift over the next, call it 3 to 5 years as well, where, you know, what we're talking about for exterior lighting could provide benefits to Excel and to ratepayers that perhaps, you know, previously were not, you know, it wasn't hitting Excel's peak in the past, but going forward in 3 to 5 years, I think that with more people charging at night, we might start hitting more of those peaks with exterior lighting, and so it could have major benefits.
I agree.
Right,
yeah.
So as you know, heating becomes more electrified, moving away from, especially in new construction, moving away from gas. That we're going to see probably a bimodal peak demand time. You know, summer afternoons during the day, but winter nights. So there's a real, I think, you know, Excel knows it's coming. It'd be nice for the rebates now to align themselves with to anticipate that nighttime peak demand. So we're reducing it on the front end and not paying catch up, you know, 3 or 4 years from now when we're behind it.
So it sounds like we would have some support for exterior, like, you know, improving the exterior rebates, the custom rebates on the exteriors. That's good. And then tying into that, what about controls for exterior? Is that something that you guys would like to see out there? Sorry, I didn't mean to jump on you.
Absolutely on the photo sensors. I mean, I drive around, all of us do, right? How many times you drive by a business and you see their parking lot lights burning at noontime and you're like, oh my God, like I need to help this person either go in and reset their time clock. But I mean, something as simple as any business that puts their exterior lights on a dusk till dawn, make it that simple and put in a photo sensor system. it drives me nuts going by these businesses and seeing their parking lot lights and wall packs burning at 12 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah. So is that for sure, but then even in addition to that, maybe even incorporating controls into the exterior fixtures where maybe they're not burning 100% all night long, and providing rebates for either
Dimming, 50%
dimming
or
to
whatever.
50%. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would say bi-level dimming. Yeah. Yep.
Because right now they currently do not rebate that.
Okay, good. Any other on this first question here, any other items that just on the whole that we feel like really the rebates are just not good enough to move the needle for us?
There's certain aspects of the horticultural space that could possibly be looked at. We've got to get these guys, these growers off of peak times. And that might require additional incentives to do it. They do get rebates, but they're not very much unless they're moving their operation off the peak times.
I think they're custom rebates too. Is that correct? Yeah. So it's probably $200 a KW on those. And I would agree. There's a lot that goes into that. I don't know how much you've looked into it. I've dug into it fairly deeply. And there's just a lot of complexities that go along with converting people over to LED and
Yeah.
probably you're right, shifting their demand. But you know, the yield is key in that industry, and anything that affects yield. But supposedly there's some LED technologies now that you can get equivalent or perhaps even better yield.
Come a long way. You can simulate dawn, the whole thing. So LED is advancing, and it is the superior technology, but it's expensive. And to get them to convert over is a big deal. And also getting them to stop their operation during peak time is not easy either. But if it was worthwhile for them, you would watch them do it.
How many of us, just kind of by raise of whatever hands or speaking up, you know, how many of us are involved in horticulture at all? I'm not. One?
We've done a little bit. We've done a few
done a little bit.
sample installations on small scale, but haven't done a full large scale one. The one that we did, that the grower, I mean, just so everybody knows, the grower could get the plants to grow, but he couldn't get them to flower when he did it. So it's kind of a change in technique as well, and how they actually, you know, times of day that they run the lights and all sorts of things factor into it. So it takes some education on their part to convert over. You know, a lot of these guys have been doing it since their dorm rooms, right? And you know, it's a fairly clandestine industry where a lot of people aren't talking to each other.
Yeah.
And things like that, I think. And so it takes kind of like a re-education on how to use it.
There was just a webinar on this last week that I attended to kind of get myself up to speed some. I don't know if other people were on that as well. Scott, you're nodding your head?
LED is mandatory in California.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, you know, we got to get them to switch over. It is acceptable, superior technology. It's just costly. And they have 300 fixtures hanging in their ceiling. And you're right. They're nervous to do it. There's a learning curve, but they will be happy once they're done.
Well, yeah, it's proving it to them, but it looks like this affects sort of a minority of us. But the point is, you know, it's not anywhere in the prescriptive rebate. There's nothing there. It has to go through custom for Excel. So, you know, what might Excel be willing to do to move this along, because it is a huge energy consumer, no doubt about it.
You know,
Yep. All right, good. I was going to move on, unless there's anything else. I was going to move on to this next question here, which I kind of written out. Yeah, just kind of curious, you know, about our, you know, your opinion here. And by the way, as we're talking about this, we don't have everybody on this call as was on last time. So we might end up refining our responses here and transforming this into kind of a multiple choice or other more quantifiable survey that we want to get out to all of our lighting members that we might then take and have greater representation of our members and know, how folks respond. So at this point, we're being more, open-ended and non-quantitative, more qualitative in our responses. But my second question was, should rebates, and I'm kind of curious about your opinion here, do you think rebates should be higher for replacing the oldest, least efficient technology, like, T12s or what have you, HID lamps or whatever, which, the energy savings percentage-wise are the greatest for replacing those? Or do you think, should it be greater to replace, that interim technology like T8s or what have you that are, moderately efficient by historic standards? Because when you compare the ROIs, it can be a harder sell to convert those to LED because the payback time is not as quick. The energy saving isn't quite as much. Maybe you're saving 50 to 60% instead of 70 to 80% or more.
I would chime in on that. I don't know if it's worth, I guess, like right now, the way the rebates work, right? You got a 2x4 trough, or you go to a new LED 2x4 trough, or whether it's T12 or T8, you get the same dollar amount.
Right.
I don't know. I think it's a slippery slope, and it gets a little messy, I guess, if you start distinguishing between, like, if it's T12 and you're going to LED, you're going to get $50 a fixture. And if it's T8 and you go to LED, you're going to get, $40 a fixture. And I think it possibly even leads to some people not being on the up and up and calling like I'll go into a facility and I'll find, like, 10% still T12, and then like 80-90% of it's still T8. And like, I could see people going in there and saying, oh, the whole thing's T12, and then claiming that larger rebate. And it's even hard sometimes to audit a facility and get it 100% right. Is like, okay, there's this many exactly T12s and this many exact T8s. Sometimes you can't even see in the fixtures. And
right.
I still carry a discriminator, but a lot of times folks don't even have a discriminator on them anymore, I think, when they audit places. So long story short, I guess my thought on it would be to just kind of lump them together as the same technology from a rebating standpoint. Not the same technology, but lump them together from the same rebate dollar amount standpoint. But I'd be curious to hear what others think about that.
I would agree with you. That adds too much complexity to it, and then it adds the ease of saying that, yeah, my whole building is T12, which at the end of the day, working with Excel for 5 years, they know they got this, especially with these new digital meters they're putting in. They if you do a retrofit, they know within reason what you put in based on your data sheets for the rebate and everything you specify. They can tell if you're lying or not.
Right.
So I agree. I just keep it standard. If you're putting in a T8 LED, this is what you're getting.
Other thoughts?
Well, I cut my teeth on the East Coast in the Pico territory, and it was kind of neat what they did. They had a very simple prescriptive rebate that everybody understood, that you could get a certain dollar amount for replacing a tube to LED. But for those of us that got into it, we were able to calculate the wattage reduced, and we would get paid much more, custom rebate for wattage reduced. This answers all the questions. If you're delamping, you're going to have a massive wattage reduction. If you're replacing T12s rather than T8, you're going to get a bigger rebate because that parking garage simply had older technology rather than T8. So the wattage reduction was easy. It's easy to calculate. I counted on it for getting larger rebates for my clients. And the goal was wattage reduction. And ultimately that's the goal, whether it's T12, T8, T-lamp, not control, right? Wattage reduction for that space.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Excel used
I
to have a T12 bonus that they eliminated, a couple of years ago. Mike, what were you going to say?
was going to say, so I agree. The wattage reduction is the key goal, and with efficacy hitting 160 LP LMW on some of these new tubes, you're burning 9-watt tubes, 11.5-watt tubes, and you're getting adequate light output. The big problem is just, again, keeping everybody honest. If you're dangling a carrot of wattage reduction, you're going to get you're not going to get the adequate lighting for a space. I mean, you go in a garage, you delamp, or you go into a business and office building, you delamp 4 lamps to 2, and then next thing you know, you're actually reducing the amount of foot candles they're getting to the floor, which then leads to issues later, especially if you pull tombstones and things like that. I'm running into that as we speak. I'm going in, properties were delamped, they have existing LED, but I'm being asked by the owner, do you have a ballast bypass that you can put in here that's going to put out more light, because there's just not as much light in here as there was before I did the project. So, well,
I think I hear you, and we definitely don't want to. I'm sure Excel doesn't want to either set things up so it's inviting fraud, and then they have to police it and be, they've got to scrutinize the change in electric in the bill from one month to the next to see if there might have been some lying going on. That's, they probably don't want to get into the policing business like that. I guess maybe to rephrase the question, do any of us experience, where we can't complete a sale because, for example, the ROI isn't as great because they've got T8s, just to continue this example. Whereas it's not as obvious. The payback, they're only open, 8 to 5 or something, so they're not open around the clock. The payback is just not as good, and the horizon for paying back through energy savings is further out there compared to older technology. Do any of us do we hear customers say, it's not worth it for me because I'm not going to save enough, or it's too far out there?
On occasion.
You want to say more about that, Matt? What's your
I
experience?
don't know. I think if people are in T8s and the hours are there, which has got to be like 2,500 or something a year, then usually you're in that 5-year range, and that should work fine. I mean, we don't really have a lot of trouble. Very seldom is that a deal breaker.
This gets back to another question I'm going to hit in a little bit later about, whether there should be any kind of bonus around peak demand, to sort of, when the lights are burning, but anyway, anybody else lose opportunities because
we definitely have several customers where if you don't get it to like a 2-year hurdle rate, like that, their hurdle rate's 2 years, and you get 5 years and they say, what, we're not interested in doing it at this point. So we on our side, we definitely have times when you can't get the payback just down to what they're specifically looking for. And so maybe sometimes you end up cherry picking a project a little bit, or sometimes the project just doesn't go forward that year. But so yeah, then you have other customers like, government customers and folks like that sometimes that say, hey, 5 years sounds great to me. Let's do it. But a lot of the corporations that we work with will kick a 5-year project out and not pull the trigger on it. So yeah. I do see that happen in our side anyway. But yeah. So, we're always looking for, I think 2 years is kind of, for most of our customers, 2 years is kind of that magical number.
It's the sweet spot.
That's the sweet spot. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially you get beyond 2.5 years when it starts getting to 3, it's harder to make the decision.
Right.
especially if somebody doesn't own the property, they're just leasing it or whatever, right?
And that's a perfect example too, where you got a split benefits issue and you have, yeah, exactly. Like, hey, I've only got 3 years left on my lease and this thing's going to pay for itself at 3 years. Like, I don't know, so
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, for sure.
Did all you guys get the bonus rebate sheet from Excel Energy? I mean, they're offering $6 until the end of the year rebate on a DLC listed T5 or T8, and if it's a non-DLC lamp, $4.50. I mean, $6 a lamp for a DLC. That's better than when I started this outfit 5 years ago. I sold tens of thousands. That was my claim to fame, was I was just doing lamps, thousands and thousands of lamps, and it was so easy. I believe it was like $3.50 or $4 a lamp was the rebate. And I had people jumping all over it. And now from now to the end of the year on a standard lamp, ballast bypass, they're offering $6 a lamp on a rebate. I mean, that's unheard of.
And then now it's instant rebate, which is nice, makes our life easier. But it's 6 now, not 5?
Yeah, I'm looking at the new sheet. The email just came through. I got this email 2 days ago, September 13th. And type A is $4 a lamp. Type B is $6 and type C is $10, and non-DLC $3, $4.50 and $7.50.
Yeah.
Along with lumen output on screw-ins, MR16s, PARs, BRs, and retrofit kits have a 25% bonus from now till the end of the year.
Yep. No, it's definitely good to see. Anything else on this topic, or before I move on to the next question? I don't know what the answer is going to be here. I welcome having this conversation with Excel. Maybe they have some thinking about it too. But at the end of the day, a lot of it comes down to peak demand and reducing that peak demand. So the next question I had here was changing. Would it be wise? Is there a case to be made for changing rebates so that more efficient fixtures aren't penalized for delivering the same light using fewer watts? So they got more lumens per watt, but the way the current prescriptive rebate structure is now for a lot of fixtures, you're rebated based on the wattage used by the new LED fixture. I think this is ripe for addressing. I'd like opinions.
I mean, I'm sure everybody would agree. The efficacy is huge. We're hitting 160, 170 plus lumens a watt on these exterior fixtures, for example. To be penalized because we didn't put in you put in a 200 watt fixture, you're going to get the fat rebate, where I got a 125 or a 150 that's putting out more light than the 200, but I can't get the same money from my customer. So yeah, that's a really good hot button right there, and that should definitely be addressed.
I agree. Definitely, there should be some way to capture the higher rebate for your customers if you're putting in better equipment.
Yeah, because right now, as you're making the pitch to your customer, the older technology stuff, you can pick it up for cheaper. It's less efficient. You can sell it for cheaper. It gets a bigger rebate, and they're looking at, what's my out-of-pocket cost? So you can make it look really nice, even though long-term, they're going to end up paying more for it month after month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of the product at 170 lumens per watt is amazing. It's high power, high output, and it's a little more expensive. So when we're doing delamping projects, so you don't have a reduced lumen output, you can begin looking at some of those high wattage and high lumen per watt output products and accomplish your delamping projects. And it'd be a shame to have a person penalized if they're paying a little bit more for a higher.
Yeah, right. Any suggestions as to how we might, phrase or word approach Excel with this concept?
Yeah, I mean, it's you can lead in with just saying that as the technology increases, we're not operating on the 110. I mean, they're out there, right? The cheaper product, 110 lumens per watt, but the Cadillac, the higher end product, you're burning 160, 170 lumens per watt, and it's reducing the draw on the grid. So you're taking that peak demand away. And what I've seen in some of the areas is you get these, I call them the fly-by nights, and we all know we hate those guys. They roll in, they slit our throats and roll out. But they're coming in to get these customers the rebate where they're putting a 200-watt fixture 20 feet above the ground because they got the fixture. It's a crap fixture. They got it cheap, but they got the customer the high rebate. And then you're running a situation where you're in a parking lot and you don't even want to look up. It's just way too intense.
Yeah,
So
people are getting into accidents because they're blinded. Right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I mean, there's a ton of angles that you could approach this, but the big one being the higher efficacy is going to be the future here in the next 24 months with the DLC premiums. That's going to reduce the peak demand, and we should be able to approach a customer and say, hey, not only are we going to save you more energy, which saves you more money, but for the power company, you're burning less wattage, but you're getting the customer incentivized to put in a 150 but get paid out like it's a 250.
Do you think there should be sort of, you have your standard rebate, you leave that alone because it just meets DLC or whatever the requirement is, but that maybe there should be a bonus for hitting a certain, be it 140 lumens per watt or some arbitrary efficiency?
Yeah, I mean, that would be
that threshold.
A very good simplification. If you put in a DLC premium listed, which is, I think the DLC premium right now is 150 lumens per watt. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, I mean, have it as simple as
I think
if
it
you're
depends
putting
on the fixture.
Yeah, if you're putting
category.
in a DLC premium that has the higher efficacy, yeah, make it a whole other category. Keep the standard alone, but add that cheddar to it. Add that bonus.
What do other folks think? What's a way that we can kind of, that Excel will say, okay, we can figure out a way of adding this to our rebate program where it's not too complicated.
You could just do a bonus and use the 130 lumen per watt, because then there would be a higher percentage of fixtures over that, and that is still premium. So that would be good.
And they do this in almost every category of product, including tubes. I would consider in tube category, anything over 130 is considered high out, but they're getting to 170, 180 lumens per watt in the UFOs and the outdoor fixtures and the high bays. So maybe anything over 150, and in the tube market, anything over 130 would be considered at this point high output, and you get a high output bonus maybe.
So maybe they might decide what that threshold is depending upon the fixture category.
And they would expect it to continue to increase.
Yeah, right. Well, let's hope. Yeah, I guess you got to engineer the drivers so they don't fry out, right?
Yeah,
that's the limiting factor.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
And we understand why they have those categories, though, right? Is like the theory that they have, right? Is it's like, if it's a 50 watt, let's say you get, I don't have the rebate form in front of me. I was trying to pull it up while we were talking, but let's say it's a 50 watts for a wall pack, you get like $30 or whatever it is.
Right.
And if you go to like, the next wattage category up, you get a little more money for that. The reason for that though, right, is because what they're thinking is that instead of replacing, like if you're replacing a 50 watt or you're using a 50 watt to replace something, that's probably like a 250 watt lamp that you're replacing, right? If you're replacing, if you're putting in like an 80 watt fixture, 80 watt LED fixture, that's like a 400 watt that maybe you're replacing. And the theory is that that fixture is going to be more expensive, right? When you go from that 50 watt to an 80 watt, that fixture is going to be more expensive. So they need to rebate it higher in order to get people to buy into it, is why they place those rebates like that. But I think
right.
kind of what you guys are saying is if you create like a lumens per, it would be like either 50 watts or 130 lumens per watt, and you can go down all the way down to like 40 watts or whatever it might be. So like like the lowest, I don't know what the lowest efficiency LEDs are at this point. I'm sure it's
About
sure
100.
there's some in like the, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some like even lower than that, but
Yeah.
you kind of have like a category like you're saying where it's down here at this like 100 watt range or 100 lumens per watt range. But then once you jump up to 130 lumens per watt, then your wattage would drop to like 40 watts to still qualify for that rebate.
Right.
I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Maybe that's what they can do, right? As opposed to having a bonus to say, have that qualifier in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it does drive me nuts. You know, I'm looking at a fixture and it's like, oh man, it's 24 watts and it's putting out the same light as a 30 watt, you know, cheaper fixture. And I'm going to get $15 for this fixture, you know, as opposed to 30 anyway.
Yeah, I mean, no, like you said, I got the sheet pulled up right here. There you go.
Yeah.
I've never installed a high bay this high of wattage, but a 465 to a 625, they're paying $250 a fixture, where you got fixtures on the market at a 400 watt or even a 350 that'll put out just as much light, and it's almost half of the wattage LED to LED.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that's probably even outdated. I'm looking at it too now. 465 to 625. I mean, I don't even know if anybody makes a 625 watt
I've never
LED high bay anymore. But you know, if you figure like a 625 watt at 100 lumens per watt, it's a 62,500 lumen fixture. 625. I'm just doing some quick math, divided by 180. You know, that's like 300. So maybe like, you know, 180 lumens per watt fixture would be 347 watts, would give you 62,500 lumens. So maybe they make the category go down to like, because I think the most efficient LEDs right now, right, are like around 180 lumens per watt. Maybe there's some up in the 200, but maybe you drop it all. You know, if it's in that DLC premium category, you can go all the way down to 350 watts and get that higher $250 per fixture rebate or something.
Yep. Okay. Well, good. I'm going to move on to the next item, which I think I think I caught a glimpse of the next round of rebates that are coming out next year around retrofit kits that have the same, you know, same efficiency as a new fixture, but now get no rebates. And this hits close to home. I did a nonprofit clinic last month, and they had a bunch of strips, and for the reasons specific to that application, it actually was, we did not want to change the fixtures out, so we installed retrofit kits on these strips. Place looks so much better than it did. It's so much better lit, and they got zero rebate, even though this is a nonprofit, because it's not prescriptive, and it wouldn't do anything for custom. It wouldn't meet the necessary requirements to get any money from custom. So, you know, I don't know if any other folks have this experience or any other similar things that aren't getting rebated at all right now that have a counterpart. If you replace the fixture, it does. Any other things other examples I could add here?
Downlight retrofit kits. I don't know if they've changed that, but I remember early on they had some really nice commercial downlight retro kits that there was no money for. Since then, there's just been a plethora of DLC listed as a commercial downlight, like the Snap Trims has its own internal driver, power selection, CCT that does that. But there's still a bunch of downlight retro kits out there, and I don't believe they give any money for those.
I don't recall. I'm changing downlights more than I'm using retrofit kits lately, because there's so many options out there. Mm-hmm. Is it I don't know, anybody else can talk to that?
I don't know. Should there even be a different rebate for like a can retrofit kit versus a new can versus a 2x2 retrofit kit versus a 2x2? I guess that'd be one of my questions. Or could those be rebated at the same? Usually you're using comparable wattage. I know that the kits are usually a little less expensive, and that would probably push people in that direction of doing more kits, I guess. But I don't know. In my opinion, sometimes I think that maybe they should be, if you're saving the same amount of energy, roughly, that they should be similarly rebated.
Anything to add to that? I personally, I mean, I don't find the retrofit kits that much that much cheaper. And usually the labor is more difficult. I mean, the only time you do it, I would do it as opposed to just swapping out the fixture, is if it's, you know, the application is such that removing the fixture is far more difficult than you know, adding the retrofit kit.
Well, it creates a lot of dust and debris and like we use it, we do the kits a lot of times when we don't want to, let's say it's like a clean environment. We don't want to cause a lot of disruption and things like that. So we might go that retrofit kit route, or sometimes it's hard to wrestle those. From a labor standpoint, it's definitely more to put a new fixture in than it is to put a kit in a lot of scenarios where you're trying to wrestle a 2x4 out of the ceiling, and or maybe maybe there's not flex to the fixtures or something like that. But so yeah, we use them fairly often. A combination of the two, really, between new fixtures and kits.
Yeah, I mean, it looks here that it's the same. The Troffer retrofit versus a new fixture, 10 to 100 watt, T8, T12, T5 is $30 if it's DLC, $22.50 for non-DLC. But I agree, I'm a fan of the retro kits because you're not having to unhook your AC power, pull that big old turtle Troffer can out of the ceiling. You can just gut it, put a luminaire disconnect, throw your side rails in, and looks just as good. And anybody who didn't know the industry wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Some of those acoustical tiles haven't been disturbed for 20 years.
Exactly.
And you're over a desk. You know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, it's a mess.
The one category that I think we're going to see coming involving this conversation is the exterior solar application. Post tops, wall packs, all of them, parking lot lights, they're going to go solar. And Excel doesn't rebate anything that where you eliminate energy. Similar to a photoluminescent exit sign, we are eliminating the energy needed for the exit signs. And then, of course, Excel says, no, we're not interested in that. And that's kind of a shame. We should try to get them to the point where they're accepting and appreciating a project where energy is eliminated, not just reduced.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that. I feel they will see the light, pun intended, of doing that, especially with the draw. I mean, give it 5 years and then doubling to 10 years, the amount of EVs that are going to hit the road, they're going to have to either build another power plant, which you got all the activists, they're not going to let them put in a coal-fired plant. So they're going to have to reduce and, or like you're saying, eliminate. But I think the old boy mentality is still kind of in play with the base of this, where they're in the industry to sell energy. So the idea of zero consumption means $0. That's just an opinion.
And the topic is currently off peak. You know, nighttime electricity
Right.
is ample.
I think that's the issue, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna have to be sort of where that nighttime is viewed as peak and is of great value to reduce that. I think that's going to be it's going to be what it takes to get any kind of, you know, greater incentives for nighttime efficiency, regardless of using their power or using the sun.
I have a smug look on my face because we're about to get 1 million EVs in Denver.
Yeah.
Nighttime energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
I'm gonna have to leave the meeting. Thanks, you guys.
Hey, Matt, thanks a lot for joining. We'll get out the email for our next call. I'm anticipating it's going to be next month.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We're probably going to have to pick up where we left off on these questions, but thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
And stay tuned to emails. Let me pick up.
And maybe we could present it that way to Excel. The fact that we're considering future needs.
I think that's
the topic.
Right. We're on their side. We're trying to get ahead of it so that we're not playing catch up all the time. Right. Right. Good
I think
point.
we're gonna have a tough sell. Just to be the devil's advocate, I think we're gonna have a tough sell convincing Excel on things that are completely disconnected from their grid, I would say. You know, like even solar power when they're doing it, you know, as a solar project for like residential
Feeds the
housing and stuff,
grid.
it's still back feeding the grid. Exactly. So I don't know if they'll be on board with that, but I'd love to do more solar pole projects. Those are big projects.
Yeah, I think
was asking a lot
our
of
best
questions.
hope is if we're replacing, say it's outdated, wired fixtures that you're putting solar powered, you're replacing it with solar powered fixtures.
Yeah.
I think that's a new construction, probably good luck. If it's brand new, they're going to be like, no, if they want to do solar, that's fine with them. But, but if we can reduce current demand, that might be our only hope.
I mean, I don't know if have you guys done much solar pole lighting projects? They're pretty darn expensive projects too. I mean, number one, especially here, we're in a special wind zone. Usually you have to upsize the pole because the current pole won't support
Wind load.
the solar
Yeah.
array.
Yeah.
Then you got to put the batteries on there. The batteries usually are only good for like 5 or 10 years. So you got to worry about that and replacing those. I mean, they end up being pretty expensive projects, I guess is the only times that we've ever really done them where they made sense was where it was like a park, for example, and it was going to be like 1,000 feet to get electrical infrastructure out to the location.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, that's same here. Yeah. Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour. Wondering if I might be able to throw one more question here before we call it a day. So this concept of providing rebate incentives for smarter design or lighting layouts, where you have fewer fixtures, or that involves a lot more work, and reconfiguring everything, rewiring, a lot more labor, a lot more expense that way. But there are fewer fixtures, smaller rebates. Any thoughts on that? Anybody in agreement with me that there should be something there?
I'm all for it. And just to take that one step further, or add one piece to it, I know I've advocated for better rebates for what we call like advanced lighting controls, but I would like to see that design assistance go along with not just defixturizing, which I think is a good idea sometimes, but also for incorporating more advanced lighting controls, because I can tell you from the projects that I've done that have advanced lighting controls, they take a good amount of figuring out, and a good amount of design and upfront homework, and trying to figure out, make sure that everything's going to talk nicely to one another, and that we've got a good plan in place for after the installation happens as well, that they've got a good way to maintain that system. So I would love to see some sort of design assistance for those kinds of things.
Yeah, I want to tackle that, the advanced lighting controls. I've got that on the list here, down for a little bit further down, but I think that's really important.
But they used to do design assistance. We're honestly one of the only companies that participated in that program, Excel's lighting redesign program. I don't know if any of you guys were around when that was going on. It's probably been 7 or 8 years, or maybe even longer than that, since they had that program. And it was a slick program where they would cover some of the design for redesigning the lighting in facilities. But the program became extraordinarily complex. And but I would love to see them re-implement something like that, but have it be a more simplified version of what they had in the past.
Yeah.
Before you guys go, question, and talking with Excel, do you guys have in mind like when you would want to, by chance? Do you guys
want to be in front of them, you mean?
Mhm. Yeah,
with ideas?
Yeah, because I had a conversation with George McGurk, and I had talked about that we're spinning up our working groups, and talked about lighting, heat pumps and insulation, air sealing, and that we felt like, especially because I think they're creating a mini DSM process, the settlement process next year in July, since there's strategic issues going on, which is every 5 years, which is the big picture decisions that drive what's in Excel's programs every 2 years when they launch the plan. And so then they're going to just extend the current plan next year, have that small mini abbreviated DSM docket, and then push once they have strategic issues in and the final decisions, then put the plan out for in 2023. It'll be a year behind. So the point is that this is how I kind of pitched it. I said that the working groups are going to be even more important this next year if we're not going to have a true DSM process with new, projects brought to the table. And it's not a great process when we're on a pressure cooker, doing this legally. So having that informal discussion and bringing ideas to them. And he said he really liked the idea, and he had asked if his program managers and his channel managers could be included in your meeting. Like if they could come in and use you as a panel, sound off their ideas, and then also talk with you about what you see happening so it can get in the plan before they release it the next time. So great progress. I was surprised at how open they were.
How soon did they want to talk?
We didn't get to that. No, we just kind of said, George said, and then I got Ann Kirkpatrick. I talked to Ann, and then she was like, "Oh, Mike said," or Mark Schoenheider commented to her like, "Well, we're going to be in all those meetings, right?" I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! You're not going to be in all the meetings. Like you're going to be invited and included and have access, and we're going to communicate together, but." We need to have our private meetings, Yeah,
we need a chance to be able to badmouth them in private,
right? But that's why. So
before we transform that into some helpful suggestions.
Exactly. We gotta massage them, the ideas, before we take them in and wrap them around, a little PR around them. So
how about this? How about this for a way of accelerating this? We've lost a couple of people already, but how about if I don't know how many people have actually taken time to like write down some responses to the questions I've thrown out. My guess is if you're like me, probably not. But what I could do would be to rephrase some of these questions and try to, we could, in the interim, try to get some written responses.
No push. It could be January. It's just that they've opened the lines to have that kind of a relationship with our committee with you guys, which I think is super exciting. So I don't think they weren't saying they want to do it immediately. They just said, we really like the idea. Yes, I want my program, my channel managers to start having those informal discussions with you guys. So I think that you can have your next meeting and talk through everything, and then feel like what do we have left to do before we talk to them.
I would say November would be a good goal. Just to chime in.
I agree. Before the holidays start. That was my original thinking. Let's get it in November before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Just in case I have a conversation, I just want to be able to say, let's connect your lighting managers with our group and look at November. So if you guys are okay with that, and if I have that conversation, I just want to be ready to throw that out. So, okay.
Does that sound good to everybody else? Worthwhile?
Yep.
Go? Okay. All right.
Okay. Perfect.
Well, let's tell you what. While we've got folks on the phone or on the line here, let's pick a day next month to pick up where we left off here. How would the 13th of October, that Wednesday?
That should
4
work
weeks
for me.
from now.
That should work for me.
Does Wednesday at late afternoon work?
Yeah.
Same time.
Same time, 4 to 5.
Does
Yeah.
it work for you, Mike?
I'll be on the East Coast at a lighting event, but I can make myself available in the hotel room for sure. Yeah.
Works for me.
It's not Light Fair, is it?
No, NAMCO, National Allegiance of Lighting Maintenance
Okay. Yeah,
Contractors.
no, Light Fair is further. Okay.
Yeah, Light
All right.
Fair is that February? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not going to New York. All right, good. Let's we'll do it. Set it for Wednesday the 13th. Hopefully we'll be clearer on the login procedures, and we won't lose anybody there. Thanks everybody for joining. I really appreciate it. I hope you found this somewhat helpful to get stuff off your chest too that maybe has been sitting around. But yeah, please look at, if you haven't yet, look at the other questions that we had out there, and let's knock out the remainder of them at our next meeting.
Okay, cool.
And then we'll get in front of Excel.
Sounds good.
All right.
Right.
Sounds great.
Thanks.
I appreciate the invite. Sorry I missed the last meeting. I mean, this is great. First time kind of plugging in to y'all's network. Really enjoyed it, and loved hearing all of the similar contractors going through the same stuff. So this was a great sounding board. I'm looking
Well,
forward to next week.
I mean, that's my thinking, right? If we can like just not be competitors for a minute, share our experiences, and let's take our common frustrations or ideas for improvement to Excel. It's going to make everybody's life better, including for customers and Excel, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let's be honest, we're all competitors, but there's so much going on. There's way more meat than we could all eat, and we're probably all having the same problem, sourcing people to help us get our stuff done.
Exactly right. So right. Well, Mike, really glad you could join us.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks everyone. We'll see you next month.
Okay, talk to you guys.